Hello, everyone. Welcome to or welcome back to Their Journey, a sit down with the National Digest. I'm your host, Eric Mastrota, and today we are once again speaking with Dr. Janet Smith Warfield and what it means to create and live in a world of planetary peace, power, and prosperity. If you haven't already, I strongly urge you to check out our previous episodes with Dr. Warfield before embarking on this one, as today we will be once again expanding even further on our previous discussions together. Hello, Dr. Warfield. Welcome back. Lovely to see you again.
Good morning, Eric. Namaste,
Namaste.
which is, of course, the power with a dance
Yeah.
brought to a halt into either the Christian symbol of prayer or the Buddhist symbol or Hindu symbol, Namaste. So, anyway,
Yeah.
Namaste to you.
Namaste. To get us started, yesterday we started and discussed a lot about the metaphor and meaning of a labyrinth and part of what we talked about is how it suggests a dynamic, kind of non-linear approach to relationships and community. So going off of that, how do you balance the fluidity of human connection with the need for stability and continuity in more collective efforts?
That is a major question. And I don't see it as a balance. I see it as a choice,
Mm,
depending on your own personal intentions at any particular moment. They're very different intentions. I don't know whether you're familiar with Ken Wilber's consciousness diagram. Are you familiar with that at all?
not really, no.
It's and I do have it in the second edition of this book. But I mentored with Ken for about 3 years. Probably it was 10 years ago or so. He has a very interesting diagram, and it's really helpful. It's a four quadrant diagram, and it's much more complex than I'm putting out here. But the left side is a subjective side,
Mm,
which is looking internally or looking at human dynamics, human thought, human consciousness, human emotions, that flow, that internal flow.
mm,
That's the left side, the two left quadrants. The two right quadrants are more a scientific left brain perspective.
mm,
It's kind of confusing because the left side is the right brain perspective and the right side is the left brain perspective. But they're very different intentions and focuses. And you always get to choose where you're going to play. And one other thing about this four quadrant diagram is the top two quadrants are individual quadrants. So if you're in that upper left square on the four quadrant diagram, you're playing in an internal consciousness flow space where you're watching your own thoughts, watching your own actions, watching your own emotions, getting yourself back to that timeless, spaceless present point in our logo after you've been conditioned and trained to go out along one of those conditioned paths from that center point.
mm,
So, and then if you go down to the lower left quadrant, which is a plural. The bottom quadrants are plural and the top quadrants are singular. So to just give you some of the distinctions, upper left is you're by yourself, you're watching your own thoughts, your own mind, your own actions, and making choices and bringing yourself through practices and trainings and whatever helps you back to that center, timeless, spaceless center point of non-dual consciousness.
mm,
Moving over to the top right quadrant, you would be out here looking over there at your brain.
mm,
It's a totally different focus and perspective because the right two quadrants are objective quadrants. The left two quadrants are subjective. And then the top quadrants are singular. So it's upper left is the I dynamic, first person singular. And the upper right is the I is looking out there at something that it perceives. When you're in the lower two quadrants, the lower left is subjective but plural. So there you're in community, maybe you're doing circle work or you're having these brainstorming conversations, probably not so much brainstorming, but sharing information. And notice that word form in the middle of that word, information, as opposed to a flow or energetic energy. And then the bottom right is the systems, the plural systems that our minds have created. And these are all really valuable tools, but they have different purposes and different intentions. So I don't think it's balancing, it's shifting back and forth, and you get to choose where you want to play at any particular moment. So, there can be an easy flow of your, sometimes it's called improv. If you're in the upper left quadrant, it's called improv, where you're just letting the words flow out any way they want to flow out by yourself. And maybe you're writing them down so you can go back and look at them afterwards, which is a different perspective, but just watching your own mind flow. And then on the lower left, maybe it's a group of people who are brainstorming how to do something together, or maybe they're just sharing information about their own lives, what's going on in their own lives, what they are feeling, what they're thinking, what they need right now, and exchanging information to support one another. That's kind of a community dynamic. The lower right, I guess, is the one that's most challenging for me to get my head around, because I started, I don't, did you study physics? I never did.
No.
So I am totally unqualified really to talk about this, but I was looking at the whole evolution of there's a wave particle debate within physics and within quantum physics, which, as I understand it, is the very smallest possible particle and or wave that physicists can identify. And there are experiments that are done that sometimes, depending on a particular perspective, sometimes what they're observing looks like a particle, sometimes it looks like a wave. And there are disruptions in this. And, which is right and which is wrong, you do not know. And even quantum physicists have not resolved that issue. It has something to do with gravity. And as I say, I'm really totally unqualified to talk about it. But I think there are some analogies here to this whole field that we're exploring right now on these podcasts. Bottom line is, I think for each and every person, you are where you are or where you appear to be. You think you are physically right now. And you could probably give it a name, a place, a time, the people around you. You see yourself as a physical body and parts of the physical body that you can break down and all that. But is this what it is? Or is there something much deeper than this? Is there I don't even know what words to use here. Is there an underbelly? Is there a field? Is there a logos? Is there something that we call the word that is really running the show and maybe even moving us around within its own field? But it certainly feels as if we have choice. I feel as if I have choice. I could be here or not today with you doing this podcast. And because accountability is one of my values, I am here.
Mm.
And you also are here. It's there are other words that are put out there to kind of give people a feel for this. I think there's a book called The Road Less Traveled, and
Mm.
I can't remember now who wrote it, but it feels as if you get to choose. Maybe you get to choose, and maybe there's an underlying energy or spirit or soul or God or Allah. Stick these names on something we can sometimes experience. And they're all different, but they're all pointing to the same underlying experience, is the best word I can think of to use. So, the best thing I can say here is if you want to go deeper, it's not about balancing and bringing everything into harmony like this and
Mm.
stopping the motion, because emotion is stopping. Um, And I don't know whether this is even relevant to bring in here now, but I guess I will. I started going back this morning into the second edition of my second Amazon best-selling book, Surrender and Soul, A Heroine's Journey. And it does actually include Ken Wilber's diagram, and it has a whole appendix in it of useful maps. I mean, the map is not the territory. The words are not the experience. The menu is not the food you eat. Keep coming back to this open question or open energy, which somehow is connecting everything, but you're not doing it alone. That's for darn sure, because none of us is omniscient, omnipotent, or omnipresent. Yeah, I don't know whether you can see any of this. You probably can't, but these appendix of useful maps begin on page 226 in the second edition. Oh, maybe you can see.
Yeah.
And that you can also find that particular map, which is quite similar to our logo if you go and look at it, on our website, Planetary Peace, Power, and Prosperity .org. It's spelled AND, not an ampersand. You got to get every symbol right and in the right place, or else it won't come up for you. There. Oh, and here I have Ken Wilber's AQAL diagram. All quadrants, all levels is what AQAL stands for. And maybe you could, it's the one, not the yellow one, but the one with the four different colors on it. Again, I don't know how well you can see that, but if you want to go deeper, go search for it or buy the book if that's easier for you. It's on page 227. There are a lot of these different maps of the territory, and which one is right? I think they're all focused on a different intention or a different goal, if you want to use that word. This Johari window, which is the yellow one here, that too is a really interesting diagram that our little left brains can work with pretty well. And it's a good tool and it's a helpful guideline. There is this Johari window, upper left quadrant, there is the open self, what I know and what you know. We both, quote, know the same thing.
Mm.
There is the hidden self, where I know something, but what I know maybe about myself, you don't know about me yet, or vice versa. There is the blind self. Now we're over on the right side of this diagram, which is unknown to me, but known to others. So maybe you see things in me that I don't see in myself. And then there's the mystery self, which is what is unknown to, I'm just using you and me as an example right there. It's unknown to both of us. And I think I've used the analogy here before of the picture puzzle, haven't I? Like a
Yeah.
10,000 piece picture puzzle. We know when we have it all together. That would probably be the known self in this Johari diagram. But what we don't know is what lies outside the edges of that puzzle. And that would be the mystery self. Or maybe what quantum physics right now is struggling with to really land and agree on. And I don't understand enough about physics myself
Mm.
to really be able to discuss it in depth. But I am aware that it's very similar to the challenge that you raised in the question you just asked. How do you balance the fluidity of human connection with the need for stability and continuity in collective efforts?
Mm.
Um, I don't think it's a balance.
Mm.
It feels like a choice lots of times. Sometimes it feels like a connection to some kind of an energetic flow that's giving you I don't know, giving you directions or choices. It's just sort of, oh, that's a good idea. Let's try that. Or I really want to do this right now. Where did that idea come from? I don't know. Maybe it's this underlying, I'll just use the word energy field because I don't know what else to use,
Mm.
that connects everything.
Mm.
That's the idea behind logos or the word. Another, these are, to me, these are all just really interesting diagrams, which we human beings have created, but they're really valuable tools. I
Yeah.
mean, we've created screwdrivers and hammers and knives and all kinds of stuff, and they're useful. So yeah, use them by all means if it helps you go deeper or understand or make choices in your own life. But this triangle here on the multicolored triangle is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and this deals with the human condition. Uh, Basic is breathing. If you're not breathing, you're going to die. Food, water, sex, sleep, homeostasis. I'm not even sure what that is, and excretion. Then safety. You have to feel secure to be able to function. So security of body, of employment, of resources. You see, all this, I think, is underlying a lot of the discussions we're having here on these podcasts.
Mm.
Morality. What if you have a really hard moral choice to make? You have to choose between supporting one person or supporting another person, and you can't do both. Of the family, of health, of property. So it's safety. I know I've had experiences where twice where I was in a gated community and my home was still broken into.
Mm.
So once that happens to you, safety becomes really important. And maybe you start setting boundaries and you start protecting yourself more. Love and belonging is the third one: friendship, family, sexual intimacy, esteem is the fourth level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And, he kind of builds this as going up to, he calls it self-actualization, pinnacle at the top, but self-esteem, confidence, achievement, respect of others, respect by others, and both are really important. You respect others, but you don't allow other people to trash you down and destroy your own integrity. And then the top one is the self actualization. And maybe this is what that question is asking, that question about how do you balance the fluidity of human connection with the need for stability and continuity in collective efforts. Um, the self-actualization, I think I've talked about this before, where you are centered, you're aware, you're present, and you are connected to something that your mind can't understand, but you can somehow you feel supported. So it's morality, and I was talking before about personal integrity and accountability, creativity. We've created these maps.
Mm.
We, we're created in the image of our maker, and so we are co-creators also. Spontaneity,
Mm.
problem solving, lack of prejudice, acceptance of facts, whatever facts are. And sometimes I'm not even sure what facts are. But if actually, I think and um, now let me go through one more of these diagrams, and then I'm going to go off on a different path on this. But this is a really basic, it's a basic question, and I don't think it's resolved. So
Mm.
each one of us gets to choose our next step, how we're going to play the entire game. Uh, just pay attention, be aware, stay centered as well as you are able. Bring yourself into center. And then from that point, you can manifest any of these maps you want to map.
Mm.
And you can create them. And sometimes, what's the book which is down the rabbit hole? Do you remember that? I can't remember. It was a famous book. I can't remember the name right now. But there's no end to how deep you can go
Mm.
on any of these paths. So you're just playing the game and making your choices as well as you're able right here, right now, given the resources that you have available. Just these to me are just really helpful tools, which we have created, but still I find them useful. Maybe other people will too. Human personality types. Gets into the human dynamics. And I forget who created this, but again, this is looks like a cross on the side of the book there. But the red is the controller,
Mm.
the person who wants to tell everybody else what to do, and it's what's in it for me. The blue is kind of the player. He's playing around, having a good time. Um, so he's a joker who does fun things. It's simple. The green is the technician. The
Mm.
green is the lower left there. And the technician is always trying to solve problems and figure out how everything fits together. And then the yellow, what they have here is the helper family spiritual, but I think of the yellow, and then some diagrams it's expressed this way. It is the creator,
Mm.
a creative mind, which is constantly changing and growing and evolving all the time and choosing where it wants to play. Um, the other thing, if I may, just this is in the second edition of Surrendering into Soul. And this is in Appendix B, and I think it's a lot of what we're trying to play with here, or figure out, or shift around as we are able. This is transformational poetry. We're moving into a different field here
Mm.
from my own spiritual path. And this one is called Babylon. It's not too long. First came the experience, then came the word. The word conveyed the experience. Or did it? Perhaps it only pointed. First came experiences, then came words. The words divided and distorted, and we've had conversations about this. We listened to the words, and we too became divided and distorted. And you can see this all over the planet right now with the wars and the name calling and uh, the money games and everything else that's going on. Good fought with evil, knowledge with ignorance, truth with falsehood, science with religion. Each man chose word weapons, hurling his words against others, dividing, distorting. The words fought and contradicted, and we fought and contradicted. Each word wanted to reign supreme, and each man wanted to reign supreme. I don't remember when I wrote that. I, I've got a lot of these in here, but I don't know that we have time to go through all of them. If anyone is interested, these are in Appendix B of the second edition, Surrendering into Soul. There are a lot of them. Actually, I would probably read a couple more if I can, just because I think they use an art form, poetry, to express something that you can't express
Hmm.
with your left brain. So this one's called Mind. What are minds do? Monsters created by machinations of mind self-destruct. Like now, that word self-destruct actually is interesting. Are they self-destructing themselves, or are they destructing you when you allow them, your mind, to, grab hold of one and say, "This is it. I've got it." Um, mind. Oh, and these are haiku, by the way, which is Japanese structure of poetry. Mind forms false idols, creating separation. Analysis splits, and it does by its very nature.
Hmm.
Words separate, divide, and categorize. That's what they do. Uh, okay, one more and then I'll stop. Okay, but I have a lot more in here. Words, all about words and poetry.
Hmm.
Words reflect unique time, place, experience, perspective. Your words reflect yours. My words reflect mine. And there are what, 8 billion of us on this planet now. We're all reflecting differently. Words jangle. Unique time, place, experience, perspective of another, and create fear. I think I gave you that demonstration where I called you some ugly, nasty names. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And maybe it does bring fear on for you. Words mirror unique time, place, experience, perspective of another and soothe. These are kind of these large language models that AI is coming up with right now, or words clarify unique time, place, experience, perspective of another, and transform.
Hmm.
So I'm just going to stop there. So we have other questions.
No, that was great. Yeah. No, we're gonna switch gears a little. We have a couple of viewer submitted questions too. When looking at the foundation in that word prosperity, we've together kind of discussed it as gratitude, abundance, and having enough. So we have a question from Francesca from New Jersey who asked, how can we guide individuals and communities to shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset, especially in a world driven by transactional economies? Great
Well,
question.
to respond to this, I think I'm going to just read or tell a story.
Yeah.
Um, and Francesca from New Jersey, have you ever heard of Sanskrit mantras?
Mhm.
Sanskrit mantras, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah.
If not, consider exploring them.
Mm.
They are really interesting. And how did I find out about this? A friend sent me an email with a link to a series of sounds true. Sounds true. Maybe not really is true, but it sort of sounds and feels as if it's true.
Mm.
Audios about Sanskrit mantras. And knowing that I was working on another book about word energy, my foreign rights agent had previously mentioned Sanskrit as a language I should explore. So Western language uses a lot of symbolism and meaning. That's important. Sanskrit uses the pure vibration
Mm.
of sound. So I ordered the audios. I began listening. This was years and years ago. Um, and among other things, there was a mantra for bringing abundance into your life. You may want to play with this, Francesca, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Um, just play with it and see if anything changes in your life. Um, and phonetically, and it's often sung, it's a sound vibration. See if I can sing now. The full mantra is Om Shrim Klim Lakshmi Namaha. You repeat it over and over and over again. And the word stream, I think, is the short version. So if you don't have a lot of time or you don't want to remember the whole thing or learn the tones on it, you can just say shreem, 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 shreem. That's the Sanskrit word for abundance. Um, so the longer mantra is composed of what they call seed mantras, little sections of this mantra. Clean is the principle of attraction. So we're talking about principles here.
Mm.
Lakshmi is the goddess of abundance, a beautiful woman with abundance flowing from her. It's available to all. Namaha means to salute. So we've got here, excuse me, try this again. Om Shrim Klim Lakshmi Namaha. Or you can just say Shri, Shri, depending on whether you want to use the longer mantra that contains all the little seed mantras or the short ones. So you can, according to Sanskrit philosophy, you can attract abundance into your life simply, again, by saying Shreem over and over and over again. But the longer mantra is supposed to be more powerful, and my guess is it probably is.
Mm.
So I decided to play with this. I thought, oh, that's interesting. I've never done this before. Let's try it and see what happens. So this was 2011. And at that point in my life, I was driving, I believe, from Englewood, Florida, up to Tampa Airport with the intention of flying back to Panama, where I was trying to build a beautiful home in the western mountains of Panama around that period of time to heal my relationship with that beautiful home I had been unable to complete. That was my intention for going back. And while I'm driving up to Tampa, I don't have anything else to do. I'm not listening to the radio or anything. So I just kept singing that mantra over and over and over again until I got to the airport and had to deal with unpacking my luggage and getting it in and all the other stuff you have to go through. And then I forgot about it. It was probably about an hour drive for me, just singing this mantra over and over and over again. Man, what could happen next?
Mm.
When I arrived in Panama, there was a penny lying on the ground beneath my feet, and I picked it up. It's a little bit of abundance. 3 days later in Boquete, my travel agent, out of the blue, gave me a free $3 phone call. Then my agent at the bank gave me two free 2011 calendars. Now, these seem like really small gifts, but if I'm paying attention, they are abundance flowing in after I repeated this mantra for the hour driving up to Tampa from Englewood, I think. And as so often happened in Panama, at least in 2011, if a taxi driver notices that you're an expat, and it's pretty obvious unless you're speaking fluent Spanish, usually he triples his fee because he figures you've got more money.
Mm.
But this time, the driver who took me back to Boquete did not do that. And it happened a second time.
Mm.
Greetings, meetings, lunches, and dinners kept flowing in. What's going on here?
Mm.
I don't really know, but it's very interesting. The kicker happened shortly before I arrived home. I've been getting about 10 hits a day on my website. Suddenly, the hits jumped to over 100.
Mm.
What's going on here? Is there something going on here that I don't understand, but that somehow seems to work? Or is it just that as I focus on abundance, I become more aware
Mm.
of the abundance all around me flowing into my life? And I think we had some discussions earlier about gratitude bowls and where
Yeah.
are you going to focus? Are you going to focus on what's wrong? Or are you going to focus on what's right? Are you going to focus on scarcity? Or are you going to focus on all the good things flowing into you? It makes a difference in the way you feel and the way you function. I mean, if you don't believe me, play with it.
Mm.
Try. Uh, all right. I think I'm probably finished with the Sanskrit mantras. Francesca, I hope that helps. And if you're not familiar with mantras, Sanskrit mantras, go explore them and use them. And particularly this one on abundance.
Yeah.
Bring it into your life. Invite it in. You're
Mm.
not standing over it with a sledgehammer saying, "Come into my life."
Yeah.
Darn it. You know, please. Yeah. I'm open to
Mm.
receiving.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm finished with
No,
with
yeah.
that one.
I mean, just going right off of that, in our conversations a lot, and we've discussed and emphasized this idea of how inner awareness and self-awareness is a great precursor to external change. So we now have a question from Cynthia from Wyoming who asks, how do you address skepticism from those who might view this focus on internal shifts as insufficient in addressing larger systemic issues like inequality or environmental degradation? Hmm.
Well, I think you need both.
Yeah.
It's not one is right and the other is wrong. It depends again on your intention, whether you focused on doing the inner work because you're feeling confused or chaotic and you want to release other people's maps from your mind, the ones you've been told, right, and you better follow my map or
Mm,
else you're bad, and bring yourself back to that center point,
mm,
timeless spaces, center point of non-dual awareness, just being here now, where. Um, and from that point, heck, if you want to focus on inequality issues, and they're certainly out there, or environmental degradation, if that's the way you want to frame it,
mm,
you can do that from
yeah.
that center point. You can go out in any direction you want, and you can manifest, and you can create, and you can structure, and you can recycle, and support people who are struggling, and a whole ton of issues here. You get to choose how you want to manifest. So I don't see it as being, you know, two different things. It is in that they're two different personal intentions, whether the focus is on getting yourself stabilized again so that you can function effectively when you're dealing with these other issues that are also important. And then once you are centered and stable and aware,
Mm,
and your mind is functional and you're feeling what you're feeling and noticing what's going on inside of you, then you can choose any of those brilliant lines going out from that standpoint. And you can support people who are sleeping on the streets if you want to, for example, or people who are being discriminated against, or you can start recycling, which is a really powerful way to deal with the environmental, all the waste issue, like landfills and that kind of stuff that's going on. There's so many ways that you can do both, but they're different processes. And you go back to Ken Wilber's diagram there. Though in the one, you're probably in that where you're centering yourself
mhm,
or getting yourself back to a center point. That's um, that's the subjective side, and when you're functioning on the systemic issues, they're probably opposite. Why did my hands go on? I didn't do that. Doggone it, system. Stop moving me around. Um, yeah, I lost my train of thought. They're different intentions, and one you're working on stabilizing yourself
mm,
first, and then once you are safe, stable, and you're free and in choice and mentally competent and aware, then you can definitely go work on these other issues if you want. I
mhm,
think I mentioned that I don't know. I've been connected with recycling and organic gardens for years,
mm,
which are both personally soothing, but they're also and very personally immersive for me. It feels as if I'm in a flow or oneness when I'm working in my garden, but I'm also creating food, healthy food, and planting seeds to create more food for more people.
mm,
So different, just really different focuses. And you get to choose what it is. One of my 6 point questions is what do I need
mm,
right here, right now? Do you need to clear the confusion in your own mind or the fatigue in your own body first? Because you give from abundance, you don't give from lack.
mm,
So you need to take care of yourself first. And then once you get yourself healthy and stabilized, then you can go out and manifest in what appears to be physical. Um, yeah, unless you have more questions
yeah. I definitely want
there.
to. Yeah, no. That's great. I want to talk a little bit now more about the foundation, and specifically, I loved hearing about and talking about more with you the foundation's vision of a retreat property, and also how we described it as a container for sustained practice, which evokes the alchemical vessel used for transformation. So, when thinking about that retreat property, what specific practices or experiences would you envision taking place in that space to catalyze deeper personal and also collective transformation?
Uh, that's a hard question for me to answer, because I think it's a totally creative and co-creative dynamic going on all the time. So it's constantly going to be changing depending on who is physically there
Right.
and what their own life path has been, what their education is, what their skills are. And it's different for all of us. I mean, I look at the members of our board of directors, and boy, they have had different life paths. But it's that can be a real advantage because somebody else has skills that I don't have, and I have skills that somebody else doesn't have. So when we come together and share the information, notice that word information,
Mm,
inform. Now, we're not talking about flow here or energy.
right.
Information is words that we're sharing with one another. Um, it can be a wonderful experience. I don't know whether you've ever done circle work,
Mm,
but that's kind of the dynamic or the flow that can happen in a very conscious community where people respect themselves, respect one another, and there there's a structure to it. Circle work I learned through Ron and Victoria Friedman when I was a Barbara Marx Hubbard Agents of Conscious Evolution mentor back in around 2011, 2012. And some of the training which Ron and Victoria gave us in circle work was we sit in a circle, which is the perfect, uh, it's called the perfect figure because each point on the circumference is equidistant from that point to the center of the circle. And look at the kind of the analogy again to our logo here. And there's no one-on-one dialogue. There is it has a structure. There's a facilitator, there's a timekeeper, and I think there's a supporter. I haven't looked at it for a while in the structure. But the facilitator introduces a topic and then maybe gives a little background information about that topic. And then there is a speaking into the space.
mm,
It's not speaking to another person in the group. You're just allowing your thoughts to flow into the space and kind of populate it somehow with ideas. So, and one person's thought spoken into the space, not into another person, but spoken into that space will probably trigger a thought in somebody else's mind.
mm,
And then another person gets to speak. One person speaks at a time, and the timekeeper kind of prevents one person from monopolizing the sharing. But it's fascinating when you go through that kind of circle experience where you come out with new ways of moving forward for yourself, new ideas, and there's such a bonding. It's kind of an emotional bonding within that circle that nobody wants to leave.
mm.
Uh, I am, let's see if there's anything else I wanted to say about that. Um, yeah, so yeah, it is very, ideally, it's very creative and co-creative. And you definitely don't want to get into a community where you got this or this going on. You want this and this going on. And you can solidify it in the structure, which is the stop emotion, and just honor one another and respect one another within the community. Um, it's kind of are you familiar with the term improv?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, improv, where again, you're almost just letting words flow out of your mouth. Whatever comes through your head comes out of your mouth. Um, Sometimes it's improv. Uh, Sometimes it's just getting out of your head, and sometimes it's using your mind.
Mm.
I can't say what specifically it's going to be, but one of the members of our board of directors, Duncan McClintock, walks at least 12 miles a day
Mm.
in the woods. And for him, that the woods or nature is a container
Mm.
for him, and his sustained physical practice is just walking
Yeah.
in within this container, uh, usually by himself, but not always. Sometimes he meets somebody along the way, or sometimes he'll meet uh, a deer or a grizzly bear with some cubs, and then you have to be really careful. That happened to him once, and I don't know if it was a grizzly bear or a black bear, but that mother was protecting her cubs, and he better not get too close, or he was going to
Yeah.
suffer some serious harm. So, I mean, he just treated the mother and the cubs respectfully and slowly backed away. And
Mm.
then they went in their separate directions. Um, and again, I come back to Alfred Korzybski, the map is not the territory. So the words are kind of a flow of information that
Mm.
maybe comes from something much deeper. Maybe it comes from what we've referred to previously as logos or the word. Are we are we creating this, or is some energy flowing through us
Mm.
and giving us direction? I don't know the answer to that question.
Mm.
Um, but of course, we're also thinking of physical property, of
Mm.
acquiring physical property. And we're actually in the process of working for that right now. We're looking specifically, probably, certainly in the western mountains of North Carolina, maybe the Poconos in Pennsylvania. We were looking in New York State until we discovered that the taxes there are horrendous. So I think we'll stay out of New York State. Maybe Tennessee apparently is another really good place to acquire a physical tract of land where many of us who are, I'm going to use the term consciousness educators, each in a different way,
Mm.
might choose to live together in community. There's a lot of talk these days. I don't know whether you're aware of it or not, but it's kind of beneath the surface about tribalizing, which to me it means moving back into smaller communities of people who are working together to support one another.
Yeah.
Right where I am right now, I don't know which neighbor it is, but there's a neighbor who brings my trash can up to the garage from the street after it gets empty. I don't know who it is, but thank you.
Mm.
That's helpful to me, particularly when I'm really busy doing what? 4 podcasts in about 10 days.
Mhm.
Plus I did a forum too at a local church this week. I don't know where I told you that. I'm kind of busy. Um, Pick up mail for my neighbor across the street. He was like 93 years old and can't go out. He's in a walker with he sits and watches sports on TV all day, but he can't walk out to the mailbox the way he used to. He's a retired Army veteran. No, he was a retired Marine, I think.
Wow.
So I, this is all this stuff is so fascinating later when you see it as a game or a puzzle or something to figure out and use to support you and the other people around you. If we all supported one another and ourselves and gave out of abundance instead of out of lack, we would together co-create a planetary, planetary peace, power, and prosperity, moving from the microcosm that each one of us is into the huge macrocosm, this dynamic field, maybe underground. What do you call it? I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm done with that one.
Yeah. No, great.
There's
Well,
some,
and going off that too, when thinking about the foundation and the future of it as well, we've described the work as a semantic solution to all human created suffering on our planet. So when looking towards that kind of future, how do you envision this legacy evolving over time, and what role do you see future generations playing in carrying it forward?
I have no control over that. So my short answer is I don't know. Once I'm almost 90 years old, and once I take my last breath, and I do not know when that will be or how it will happen, it's out of my hands. Now, the what I hope I can leave for future generations. So at some point, I'm going to be passing the torch
Right.
on to younger people in future generations. But what I can offer them, maybe, if they choose to accept the gift and they're interested in learning and growing and being the most empowered person that they can be, I can offer them lots of tools and practices that I have learned or experienced or been involved with over my own life, and they can take them or leave them. I see them as being a gift. And if or an invitation, if you want to play with this, here are some things you could try. Doesn't mean you have to say, I'm this great teacher or anything like that. You try it for yourself and see how they work for you. And so I don't really know specifically. I can tell you a couple of things about a specific piece of land. And I may have said this before, but I'm currently in Sarasota, Florida.
Hmm.
And Sarasota, Florida is about 30 feet where I am, about 30 feet above sea level. It's very likely to be totally underwater in 100 years. That's what a lot of people are predicting. So I don't want to acquire a tract of land in Florida.
Right.
And that's why we're looking at higher elevations, and there are a lot of reasons why we're looking the way we're looking, but it's a lot more complex than that, because you get into the money flow issues, you get into title issues. I'm a retired title attorney, so I have a lot of skill to read titles and know that the property actually does belong to the seller rather than who knows what. And then you need surveys done sometimes, and you need to look at uh, the floodplains that the properties in. There's a lot you need to look at just about the physical property before you actually put a lot of time, effort, and money into co-creating this retreat center. But it certainly on my in my vision. And I'm working right now with a lot of people with whom, if we can all work together, I think we can do it.
Hmm.
Now, when or exactly how, I don't know, because there's still a lot of moving pieces. But
Hmm.
as I say, I've been looking for land for years. I may have mentioned this before. In 2021, I found two amazing pieces of property right in the Asheville, North Carolina area, which would have been perfect for
Beautiful.
what we wanted to do. But at that point, I didn't have the money flow, or we didn't have the money flow to be able to actually make an offer on those properties because the bank rules had all changed. So you've got constantly moving, shifting rules, structures, which we're creating and co-creating all the time. And we always want to make them better, but
Right.
sometimes they're not better for everyone. They're just better for some people and not for others. So it's a very shifting, moving dynamic, but um, it'll be interesting as long as I have breath in my body to see how it evolves. And I'm pretty clear about the things that I can contribute and also the things that other people I'm working with in the foundation can contribute. There's some amazing stuff going on right now.
Mm.
Um, we have a new member of our board of directors. I don't know whether I've mentioned that or not, who just came on, but he's all about philanthropy, which
Right.
is very similar to this whole infinity flow of giving and receiving, which is what I would envision a conscious community as being. That it's well, there are aspects of it that feel as if they're very stable and static, and then there are others that are just flowing and moving and that you can't control really. So he's he's an interesting guy. I got to get back to him because he has a lot of skills, and I don't. I think we're aligned in that we both function a lot in this giving and receiving dynamic, as opposed to, well, you pay me so much money and I'll do these things for you, which is a very transactional dynamic. And I owe him a phone call right now
Mm.
because I can't both prepare for a podcast. I get on the phone with him and I know the conversation is going to be all over the place. And he's talking about some kind of, I don't know that you call it a campaign, but a way of inviting people to support the foundation financially. But it sounds pretty extensive, and it's probably going to take a lot of my left brain capacity to figure out what he's doing and have him show me. Um, but definitely, yeah, I'll be passing the torch at some point, and maybe I'm already doing that
Yeah.
just even through these podcasts with you, to the extent that anyone learns anything or they're able to create more, create more, manifest better things as a community, then maybe what you and I are doing here is making a contribution to others. I would certainly hope so.
Right.
I don't know whether that answers your question.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And we're gonna close off with another viewer submitted question that I think does a good job at kind of encapsulating a lot of what we've talked about in almost all these episodes in terms of language, communication, self-advocacy, and things like that. But we have a question from Santana from Ontario, Canada, actually, who asked, how can I better identify and release language patterns that keep me trapped in toxic cycles of pain?
Well, I can tell you one thing. That very question will put you in toxic cycles of pain because that's where your focus is. So if you um, change your focus, if you choose to, you don't have to. You can sit in your pain forever if you want.
Right.
Just sit there and suffer. Or, try something like affirmations or seeing the good things in your life. Or maybe you go out and you get a little, I don't know what kind of pain she's talking about when she talks about,
Right.
but she's talking about being trapped.
Mm.
in toxic cycles of pain.
Yeah.
And they're all, if you stop and pause and observe, you can often, you don't have to keep banging your head against a stone wall and wondering why the wall doesn't move. You can find ways of going under, around, or over the wall to get to the other side, which is a totally different shift of perspective. And, it's really interesting to me. And I think I may have mentioned that I have here with me and have had for a couple of months a member of my board of directors who really has been heavily challenged physically and mentally and emotionally in a lot of other ways. But I see the shift going on. She is now able to walk when she wasn't. She's able to speak clearly. She's able to think clearly.
Mm.
She's able to do some of the tasks for herself that she wasn't able to. She was doing. So, and she does do, she's reading, she's got all sorts of skills under her belt, but, suddenly they weren't functioning for her and she wasn't sure why. And she had a mini stroke or what, she wasn't sure. But she knows how to use affirmations. She is the one, I don't know if I've mentioned this before or not. As a child, she was still wetting her bed when she was 9 years old.
Mm.
And every time she wet her bed, her mother would say, girl, girl. And she'd put the sheets out in the line and tell the whole neighborhood that, her daughter was a bad girl.
Mm.
That's really destructive. And then her father would beat her with a belt and then back. And at one point, her mother even, she had a wash basket and she put her daughter down on a chair and tied her to the chair so that she could not move. And maybe that's the kind of thing that Santana is experiencing now, or something similar. Because when you're 9 years old and your mother has strapped you to a chair, you cannot move. And you probably do feel trapped. I know she felt so ashamed.
Mm.
And the bedwetting just continued until she started shifting her own perspective. And look what, I mean, yeah, she's been suffering here, but she's a certified attorney, massage therapist, um, has a lot of skills with sound and energy healing at this point. So she's used a lot of the tools that we talked about earlier. For example, affirmations. Just start using affirmations. Uh, there was a tool that she used to shift herself out of the shame and blame and feeling trapped that her parents had put her in. And I don't think, I forget whether it comes from the Bible, it probably does, but the sins of the parents are visited on the children. But the children, if you look at the book of Revelation in the Christian Bible, the New Testament, and you look at that word overcome, this is what a lot of this is about, Santan. And you too can overcome.
Mm.
The book of Revelation says over and over again, to he, of course it's he, it's not she, but let's use the word she for you. I assume you're with an A on the end of your name. To she who overcometh shall I give
Mm.
over and over and over again. So, part of it is in your hands. You get to choose. You always get to choose. And some of the choices may not be easy, depending on where you live and how you're treated by other people around you and how much education you have. And skills you have learned, how many people you have around you who support you or care for you or feel compassion for you and support you as they are able. Uh, and how many people are just going to beat you down? Again, we're getting into this, what are you in? It sounds as if you're maybe in this dynamic. And of course, I think it's different from what it is for a man. Boy, we should go in a whole lengthy discussion about that dynamic. Because men are physically stronger than women, generally speaking. Um, and there's no stuff one day on which I guess we don't even need to talk about here that is harmful to other people and to the planet. And the male female, that whole male testosterone thing. He did a whole series of TV shows about mastering testosterone. What if that shifted? What mastered their testosterone? Would that change some of the stuff that's going on? What if they stopped fighting over a woman
Mm.
or fighting, or wanting to rape a woman just to release their own flow of testosterone? This is so deep and so complex, Eric,
Mm.
that I I probably I will say just a couple of other things here. Yeah, definitely. If you choose to, and if you are able to somehow, use some of the practices that we've talked about earlier on these podcasts. Definitely the affirmations. That's really important because you can do that regardless of what other people are doing to you right now. But, you can use the Sanskrit mantras that we talked about today. Take a look at our website, Planetary Peace Power, andprosperity.org. There's, there's a whole vision statement and a mission statement there under the planetary tab. And it's moving away from the trauma and the shame and the fear into overcoming and standing in your own strength and power. And then from that point, when you are centered and aware, then you will not be experiencing these toxic cycles of pain, which is the way you express, because you will be standing in your own strength and power and manifesting the gifts that you have been given out into the world to serve us. So I can say it is.
Yes. Beautiful. Wow, Dr. Warfield, I can't thank you enough for taking the time today and for all of our previous episodes as well, offering your thoughts, your knowledge, and your experiences with us at their journey. It's truly been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
I've enjoyed it too. It's made me go deeper,
Right,
Eric, than I would if I were just, cleaning up the dishes in my sink or
right.
preparing meals, because I've really had to think about some of these questions. But I can tell a lot of the questions that viewers are asking, the way the questions are framed, they're too broad and they're too generic, and I don't have enough specific information about that particular person because what one person needs may be totally different from what another person needs. That's why I keep going back and forth to take a look at our mission statement and just generally take a look at our website because there's some good content on there too. There's some of the TV shows we did. We talk about word energy alchemy, for example. That have the consciousness diagram up there. Um, but also do your own inner work, which is asking yourself, oh, these are the questions that help me. Maybe they won't help me, but I'm repeating them again. Right here, right now, what do I think? What do I feel? what do I need? And it sounds to me as if that's really an important one for you to start thinking about an answer. And what are my choices in that one too? Are you tied to a chair where you can't move with your father coming down on you with a belt to beat you?
Mhm.
And how old are you? I don't know enough about you to be able to answer those questions, but you can start answering. So what do I need? What are my choices? Do I have to keep banging myself against my head against a stone wall and hurting it and getting bruised, or can I find ways to go under, around, or over that stone wall? You're probably not going to go through it,
Yeah.
even though you're banging your head hard against it to try to get it to move. And then take a look at other tools, maps, like Ken Wilber's four quadrant diagram. Um, if you choose, and if you have the time and the resources to do it, there are still a lot of free libraries out there, or maybe you can even access some of this information online. You could access a lot of information on that website,
Yes,
and it's free.
definitely.
If you have a computer
Yeah.
and those tools with which to work, or you can borrow them from someone, maybe. You really have to pay attention to the people you choose to be with.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for everyone at home, just to echo that sentiment, if you want to check out our previous content with Dr. Janet Smith Warfield and her foundation's website, Planetary Peace, Power, and Prosperity, all of that will be linked below. I highly recommend and urge you guys to do that. But once again, I am Eric Mastrota, and this has been Their Journey, a sit down with the National Digest. Take care, everybody.